And meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. So, hi everybody, happy Sunday. Welcome to another artist conversation with Kao Lee. And we tonight will be talking with her in her studio about her artwork and all the fabulous things that she does. So, and you do quite a few things, lady. You're pretty fabulous. So for everyone who has never met you before and doesn't know who you are, can you introduce yourself and talk about what kind of artist you are?
My name is Kao Lee Thao. I'm a visual artist, public artist, also a tattoo artist and a 3D animator. So I do a lot of artwork.
So you've been doing artwork for a long time, but you also started kind of taking a different career path before you became a full-time artist, which that you're going to be a psychologist.
Yes. Growing up, my parents always said, encouraged, my brother and I to be a doctor. So the closest thing I thought was being a psychiatrist because I love the human mind. So studying psychology was something, that I found fascinating. And then I was about to graduate, but I had this bizarre dream and I decided to quit and pursue my passion, which is art.
So you are a full-time artist now. And can you explain like kind of what you do like in a day, like being an artist? Because besides just being an artist, you are like, you own like 3 or 4 Etsy pages, you run your own website, you do all these public art events. You are like an independent artist doing everything. So I can't imagine that you like ever stop working.
Yeah, that's probably because I never sleep, and that's the only way I can get a lot of things done. Definitely, I love to explore different mediums, and as long as I'm able to create art, I will venture out and do anything I can. Usually I wake up in the morning, have my virtual coffee, and then I start on personal commission work that people hire me to do. And then every now and then, if I have time, I will do my personal paintings, but that's like really rare. With the public art, it's so different because they span it out so like 3 months or 6 months, it depends on deadline. So I kind of go in and out of like working on commission, working on public art, and then my personal work. I try to work on my personal work as much as possible because sometimes I love doing client work, but then you sometimes need to feed your soul, so you have to do work for yourself as well.
So when you have commissions, when people come and talk to you about work, like what are they usually looking for when they come and talk to you about something? Like, is it usually like something that's inspired from your personal work, or are they like looking for specific things?
Most of the time, because they know my art style, they're just basically saying, they tell me a story, because that's how I generate ideas, is listening to stories, and I usually tell them to tell me a story, and then I incorporate that within the painting. Sometimes they tell me exactly what they want, but sometimes they kind of allow me that creative freedom, which I really love the creative freedom, because there are some elements that maybe the client would have never thought about, but then I did, just because of I get inspired by stories and the people I meet. So.
When you do a piece of commission for somebody, like I know that you do all sorts of different pieces of artwork, but like let's just say like a commission painting. How long does something like that take with like a client artist relationship from start to finish?
Yeah, that really depends on the size and whether I do it in watercolors or acrylics. It really just depends. And if I have a lot of clients lined up or commissions, I try to span them out. I usually ask if they have a deadline, because the most time, it's always great to give your artists enough time to create this commission piece, because artists, we work on emotions, and it's really hard to, people think you just wake up and just paint, but it really takes an emotional kind of psyche in order to create work. So you typically 2 to 3 months. That's if I'm working on it a lot. But then I'm also, switching out, doing commission, doing personal, doing public art, doing Etsy, different venues.
So I just saw that you completed like the rose for one of your public pieces. And like, I didn't realize until I went to your website that you've done lots of public art. Like you have quite a lot. Like, I haven't had the opportunity to do public art before. Can you tell me about like how you got started in doing that? Or like, did you have to go seek it out, or did like, was there something that like motivated you to do that?
I think I've always wanted to expand on my artwork and do public art just because it reaches a different, like a larger group. And also you use a lot, like the community becomes like the driving force behind all of your inspirations. So a lot of my work has definitely changed due to working in public art. And it's great because you get to connect with your community, your surrounding, and you create art that you probably would never, versus just sitting in your studio and painting something.
There was, I don't know if you remember this, this is a couple of years back, but like it was very early at the airport, and I walked by and I got so excited that I saw your piece like in the Minneapolis airport that like, I don't think that I knew you quite very well at that point. But it like totally made my day, where I was like, oh, like I haven't even had my coffee yet. It's like 3 a.m. and I was like, and this is fabulous. There you are. Like, is that considered public art if it's something like that? Like, what is public art?
I would consider that as public art just because it's not seen in a gallery space outside where the community can actually go and view, that anybody can view if they really wanted to. I just think public art is really powerful because it can make, statements about the community you live in, bringing them together, and even working with the city just to, come up with an idea and, installing it. So definitely.
And then you have a piece that's behind you. I guess like for people who don't know you, we should probably start showing some pieces of your art, but can you talk about the one behind you?
Yes, this is a piece I created. It's all hand cut foam, layered and hand painted. It was for the Made Here. It was displayed on Hennepin downtown Minneapolis.
Okay. And so it's cut paper. What are the materials for it again?
Foam and paper, just all foam and paper layered. It's kind of like I have different styles. I have my watercolor, and then I have my acrylic style, and then I also have a dark style. I'm a Gemini, so I'm always, playing with different worlds. But it's basically taking my acrylic style with textiles and bringing it into like more of an installation. I would love to do more of these type of pieces eventually in the future. I have one at Habitat for Humanity. It's all hand cut and layered exactly like this, but it's all wood. But that's something I would love to explore on a bigger.
Yeah. And like, so you have watercolor, you have acrylic, you have tattooing, you have masks. I've seen your tile work, and now I've seen this, like you go all across the board in materials. And like, who shows you how to do this?
I guess my dreams and myself. For me, I'm always the type of artist that approaches things like an artist can achieve anything. It's just how they want to break it down and, make sense. Like paper cutout, when you think about it, it's foam. It's just a little bit larger. You layer paper, color combination. So I even make headdresses too. It's just, as an artist, I just always try to, stay creative.
So do you, how often do you try something and it doesn't work out?
I don't want to. It actually works out all the time, and it's just by luck. Just because I think, failure is something that I don't like. So for me, I I won't try it unless I know that I can at least succeed a little bit, just because I know failure is important, but for me, it's just like, I'm so motivated. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure it out. And most of the times when I try something new, it's been really rewarding. So I'm lucky in that sense.
So, what do you think that you haven't had an opportunity to try to make yet? Like for a material that you haven't like thought about?
I would love to get into fiberglass art. That's something interesting. But that's like way out of like, that's just a dream, pipe dream, just because of the material cost and everything like that. What I would do in order to get to that level is, do little tiny mock-ups of how I would achieve this shape if I use paper, if I use different types of fabric, and then eventually, when I get more comfortable with that material, I will move up on like fiberglass or something like that.
Have you ever taught something else, like some of your art stuff?
No, I'm a self-taught artist, and it's so hard for me to. I always imagine it's hard to teach something that I kind of taught myself, and I'm not. And it's different with everybody else. Not everybody's gonna learn the same way, or my techniques may be just for me. But I always love to make sure that if people are creating art, it's within them. I mean, we are all artists. It's whether or not we want to express it and act on it. So.
Right. I'm going to share my screen so I can start showing people what some of your artwork looks like. So I'm on your, can you see it okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I'm going to just go to the portfolio tab quick because like, I mean, you have so much stuff. I love it, but like I had not had a huge chance to look at all of all things across. And it's like I just find it fascinating. Like you have like 1,000 colors like in, like a square inch right here. I mean, they're beautiful, like everything. Like this is watercolor.
Yeah, that's watercolor. I started out as a watercolor artist and then kind of expanded to acrylics. Sometimes I use oils, but then I'm really impatient, so I stopped using that. And I always come back to acrylics, just because I can paint larger pieces with acrylics and the colors are a little bit different. But eventually, I plan to create huge watercolor pieces as well, because I got to go back to my watercolor. That's where the inspiration came from.
So you do have a lot of similar themes kind of like in the artwork that I've seen. I mean, I've seen like some pieces go in different directions, but can you talk about some of the inspirations or the storytelling that's in your own artwork?
Yes, definitely. A lot of my work, especially my watercolor work, is inspired by like Hmong folk tales, people I meet, the cultural ones especially, because I've always been inspired by like Hmong textiles. So I tried to incorporate that within my work, but it's with like an American influence. So it's kind of modern and traditional Hmong.
I love the koi fish. I'm making an assumption women.
Yeah, majority of my pieces do. They're about women, because being a Hmong woman in my culture has been, I mean, it's challenging, but we've been taught to kind of become like the traditional wife, the taking care of children, getting married, and that's fine. But for me as an artist, I've always wanted to try something different and creative, and that's why I became an artist. But I paint Hmong women just to kind of spark that inspiration that we can dream and become who you truly want to be.
When other like Hmong women see this, like what do they usually talk to you about?
A lot of Hmong women, they say I'm brave because I'm a Hmong artist, and that I definitely have gone beyond like what a traditional Hmong woman would grow up and become. and they are inspired by it, which is great for me because I mean the whole point is to kind of find, like, kind of give them strength to kind of venture out and do what they want to do in their life, like pursue their passion, not to be afraid, and to have a voice, especially a voice, because in our culture we're supposed to be quiet and obedient and never question anything.
Um, these are so amazing that like, do you like, was your family like very supportive of what you were doing? I mean, since this is like kind of like a little off path of like what I'm hearing as tradition.
Initially, no, they haven't been supportive, but that's just culturally something, because you want your kid to become successful and succeed. They don't want to see you struggling. I mean, I know I'm an artist, but I truly believe that as an artist, if you're willing to sacrifice whatever it is to get, your art form out there, it shouldn't matter. But they never really supported me. I mean, now it's a little bit different because they have no choice. I mean, I'm an artist now. There's no way. I mean, there's no other career that I'm going to be, taking.
I mean, like anybody could see like just from your vast portfolio, like on your website and like the more and more artists, the more that I'm like, these are some of the most hardworking humans I've ever met. I mean, like just looking at what you have, like I was like I know that you have so much like work, but like I was like, oh my God, 4 Etsy pages, and there's public art, and there's animation.
Yes.
Like I was like, wow. I mean, you just must never ever stop working.
No, I don't. And that's just like everybody always says, how come they always like take a vacation or do something else, but this is my passion. This is what, I enjoy doing. So I'm not going to stop. I mean, the only time I'm going to stop is if I'm tired and I need to go to bed. But yeah, there's never enough time in the world to create.
Do you want to talk about any of these pieces?
The ones that you just currently looked at, they're inspired by Hmong folk tales. It's my Echo collection. Majority of them have been sold, except for like maybe 1 or 2 pieces. But it was like my first solo show, so that's another thing. Eventually, I'm gonna do a solo show because I haven't had one since 2004, which is a very long time. So I think it's I'm kind of working out ideas and eventually create my own solo show because it's been a while since I've done that. And a lot of my pieces have Hmong women sewing. Traditionally, Hmong women sewed, Hmong costumes, and they're like the storytellers. So anytime you see a Hmong woman sewing in my paintings, it's just basically a narrative of like a story is going to be told.
Your color palettes, I mean, all the time they're so rich. I mean, like, and like sometimes watercolor is hard to get like, that soft, that dark, I mean, like these are very, very worked. Like get that type of like parts of this is very whispery and parts of this is very loud and heavy. And like I know that you said that like a lot is inspired by the Hmong textiles, but like is everything in here? I mean, like that the pink and the orange and like everything through it?
Some of the pieces, yeah, you'll be able to tell that they're Hmong, especially not my darker stuff, but more of my traditional. It is inspired not just by Hmong, but like Southeast Asian art. I like to merge like Vietnamese, Japanese. I'm a huge Japanese, fan. So I try to merge all the cultures together, so you can't really tell. But predominantly, it's based on Hmong.
So can we talk about some of your darker stuff? Because like I think that's where like you and I have had the introduction with each other, like through Gods and Monsters and the Unicorn Art Show and like we love your dark stuff. Like it is so pretty. I mean, and this is one of them, right? I mean, because it's got the little eyes and everything.
Yes. I've always created dark artwork, but it was always in my sketchbooks. And sometimes I'll bring that to life by doing a painting, but I've always had I carry a sketchbook all around, and most of it's filled with dark art. But I didn't really create much because there wasn't like a place that I could showcase my work. So when I found out that Gods and Monster, was based on just dark artwork, I take every opportunity I can to like submit something, because it's my time to kind of create dark artwork, which I normally don't.
Would this be more darker?
Yeah, it's she's a Hmong shaman, but yeah, it's dark and Hmong.
That pink, everything. I mean, stop me if you want to talk about any of these. I just want people to see, like,
I just love playing around with colors too. Just because it's eventually I would maybe try to do more of a not a fantasy world color scheme, just because it's different. I want to kind of explore and try something different as well. But for some odd reason, colors, they just speak to me, and it's just easy for me to, I don't know, combine the colors, and they just go on paper.
now these smaller right here, were these for a show, or is this more for commission-based work?
For my Etsy site, I started doing like coffin girls. Those are like one of a kind, hand painted, and then I put resin on them.
Oh, gorgeous. So I did notice on here, I'm gonna go move your shops. You have 4.
We have some other sites. Don't have them on there. I have at least 5 Etsy sites,
So like, I mean, watch me scrolling. This is like, look how much stuff you have created that people have seen. I mean, this is only one shop and it's 17 pages, dude. Like, with and all of your photographs are great. You usually take your own photographs for your stuff?
Yes, I do.
I'm gonna go back over here. Just to get an idea of some of the public art that you've done. This is the most recent one, the Roseville.
Yes, that is. That one is installed by DoubleTree by Hilton in Roseville, Minneapolis.
How long were you working on this project?
We had 11 days to complete it, but it took me like literally 2 days to prep it and prime it, and literally a whole day of drawing and sketching. I probably wouldn't have sketched it, but then I had Ash kind of help me with the airbrushing because I needed to look more like watercolor. So that's why I sketched everything out. But then I was there literally from, I believe, 9 to 6 hours a day until it was completed.
That's amazing. And your Instagram, you show some in progress, and then I was looking at your animation of like you doing the painting. Here. But like, prepping a canvas, how for something that you're working roughly that size. Oh, that's for us. I didn't
Yeah. So whenever I want to go over there, I can always paint as well. So
yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Here, I'll stop sharing so that we can take a better look at what you're going to make us.
Okay, so here's my studio. When people come in here, they get to, I have a lot of artwork up, and basically I kind of switch these out every now and then. There's my coasters. I have a lot of artwork, as you can see. And then this is my watercolor station where I paint. then my computers, and this is basically my little corner where I paint. Here's the painting that I prepped yesterday. But what I do is usually I kind of start with a blank canvas. I don't really know where I'm going. I kind of let my subconscious kind of take over. And I just lay down colors in layers. I love working in layers because things kind of shape. But like initially there was nothing here, and then I just saw a face, and I started kind of like outlining where it is, and then from there I just kind of allow myself to kind of do whatever. So for me, there's no right or wrong way to create or start a painting. But that's just like kind of like my process. But I'll just basically, lay down colors and work in layers.
So I noticed that you're wearing a glove on your left hand. Is that for painting?
It's really dry, so I'm like, oh, my hands will get wet, but I gotta go get them. But yeah, that's just how the process is. I usually use a paper towel, but because I wet my canvas a lot, I need gloves, especially during the season too. But for me, when I create, I just kind of let my subconscious take over and I guess allow the canvas to kind of speak to me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but and this process, it always morphs and turns into something different. It just depends on like the mood I'm in, the inspiration, or there's never really a subject matter besides maybe the emotion that I'm feeling or something.
So I've noticed that you don't have anything that you're referencing as far as like a figure is concerned. Is it because you like draw so much that like with getting like, because I mean like all of your anatomy with like your hands and your facial expressions that you have in like a lot of your artwork, I mean, those are really like highly skilled. I don't see a picture of the face anywhere next to that canvas.
Yeah, for me, I never use reference growing up, so it's a little bit different. When I use references, it just never turns out like the picture that I'm looking at. So it's definitely from like images of like my dreams or people I meet, or just seeing shapes and forming it. But I'm sure, I've been doing this for 14 years, so I'm sure just because I know what a face looks like, maybe I'll, there's different variations. And, I don't want to say comes natural, but I just know, I guess.
That you had the practice in it.
But there's never, there's no right or wrong way of approaching artwork. It's just how, there are people that can work with references and they're amazing. And I wish I could work off of references because it would make things a little bit easier for me, because this is like, you never know what it's going to turn out, just because it just changes so much. And, but I'm okay with that because I think it adds a different level and a different, it'll change. Eventually it'll change. I'm sure after this, and then when I post it later or a few days later, you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't think it was gonna turn out that way. So, but that's just my process.
When you prepped the canvas today, were you just to have something to start with?
Yeah, I just usually start with a blank canvas, and then I'll just put colors down and then have it drip, and then just go from there. Just know, like, I never really know where I'm going until it's done. I just kind of look at shapes, and I don't know, for some odd reason, I'm able to create something.
Do you build your own canvases?
I used to, but no, I don't anymore. It just takes too long. But yeah, I used to build my own canvas just because I don't have the space to do it. But yeah, I build my own canvases and also frames. But yeah, now I just go buy them. It's just easier.
I was taught when I was younger that like from a teacher that like if you want to be a real painter, you have to be able to build your own canvases. And it's like that's great, but we live in Minnesota and not everybody has like the luxury of being outside with like, a hammer and nails or whatever to get done. And then I started giving up. It's not efficient,
No, very time consuming, and I totally understand it because I mean, I know some people that actually take a canvas and they'll like sand it down, prime it, and do different things just because they don't like the texture of it. So I mean, creating your own canvas is great, but for just time and also like how expensive it is, it's just time consuming for me. So if I had more time, I would.
And with your paint, like, do you work with a specific type of paint only, or do you like brand or anything?
No, there's no true brands. I've explored with all sorts of brands. There are some that I like more than others, but honestly, I don't think. I mean, brand, yes, you can have some. Some colors are more vibrant and opaque, but honestly, you can paint with anything in my mind.
And are you partial to certain brushes versus others?
Oh no, I buy the cheapest brushes just because I destroy them. So I make sure there are some that I do invest in, but then my brushes just go through so much that it's, I don't invest too much in brushes. I know that once I have them, they're going to be ruined. So, but that's just how how I paint and how I create. So just knowing that.
And the brush that you have in your hand right now, that's like a flat, right?
Yeah, I actually used to paint a lot with round brushes, and then just recently I did not like the flat brushes, and Ash is always telling me you should try the flat brushes, and then now that I have, I'm like, okay, I understand now. I really like the flat brushes, so I've been kind of exploring them more because the round brushes are nice. I can definitely get things softer, but the round brushes, I'm able to create more like textures, angles, and but yeah, for me, if you watch me paint, it's just there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just like it's just how I create.
It's so soothing to watch. Like even I'm starting to get hypnotized. I'm like, I'm supposed to be asking you questions. I think this is why all of us really like watching Bob Ross is like, the sound of his voice and like, like what's going to happen next? What's happening? Maybe I'll start asking everyone after this artist conversation if they want to start doing some live demonstrations with it.
Yeah, I think it's a great. I mean, for me, it's good because I love creating while I'm talking. It just makes it a little bit more intimate for me. So I don't feel like I'm not paying attention. I am. It's just this is kind of like my security blanket. I really enjoy painting.
When you were talking about like how a lot of your, you had a series where a lot of them were from Hmong fairy tales, and I realized that like I don't know any Hmong fairy tales. Could you tell me like a gist of one?
So many of them. I don't know which one to tell.
Tell me one that let's see, I'm trying to think of, I guess right now I can only think of like Western narratives that would be like, how about, princess overcoming something? Is there anything in that line?
The thing with Hmong folk tales is like everybody kind of tells it a little bit different. The most famous one is the Kao is the Dragon Princess, or there's Cinderella. But the narrative in the end, there's always a moral to the story. So it's always about making sure that family is like your number one. Like family is so important. Like you're in the tiger, where the tiger actually kidnaps a baby from a Hmong village, and the tiger raises it and she becomes like a princess and goes back to the Hmong village, and the tiger is like trying to get her to kill her parents, because in Hmong culture, tigers are like feared animals. So for her to kill her parents and everything, it's just she decides not to eventually. I don't remember the whole story, but the whole, like everybody that explains folktales is so different, so it's hard to like, because of the versions are different. But she just goes back to the village and basically kills the tiger and then lives among her, the family again. Because growing up, my mom told me that when she used to work in the fields, in the Hmong fields, they would always have to be careful because of animals would maybe kill them while they're farming. So my mom would tell me that they would carry a stick. So in case they're like working on the rice fields or something and an animal came, they were always prepared to like basically fight them off.
Right.
Most of the time there's lots of love stories too in animals. You'll see a lot of the motifs are the same. So, but yeah, there's so many different versions of folktales. And then if you tell one, they're like, no, that's not how it goes. But it's like, well, that's how my grandmother told me,
And then what about Western fairy tales? Do you find yourself drawn to like certain ones over others, like with like your Hmong culture, like being attracted to one, or do you kind of like them all?
I kind of like them all. There's, folktales, I love them because the traditional ones are really dark, and that's the beauty of it, but everybody kind of sugarcoats it when they're telling it in a book. But actually, folktales are really dark, and I really love that because it just shows a different world that people aren't used to living in. So definitely something. I'm not sure if I like Western or Hmong, but they both have their pluses.
So right now it looks like you're painting like floral pieces, kind of.
Yeah, felt like I wanted to give her some flowers. Eventually, this is a happy painting, but who knows, it might turn to something more dark. It just depends on kind of like the mood I'm in eventually. But it's just more about laying down colors. There's no right or wrong way of creating, but that's just how I create. It's just seeing shapes and laying colors next to each other. So.
Is it common when you're painting to kind of keep it monochromatic for a while?
Actually, I just decided to do monochromatic because I typically don't. Trying to do different things that I normally wouldn't do just to see what I can create. But most of the times, it's always colorful. I have a very colorful palette, but lately I've been trying to push into a different direction just so I can see what I can create using just different types of color schemes. Most of the time I don't just create with one color. But I know that if I work in layers, it's not going to matter. Eventually, I will bring color back into this, but it's just more about a mood and feeling that I wanted to do.
Watching you paint makes me want to paint.
Well, you should. You can always paint. But yeah, painting is just kind of an art therapy for me. It's my way to escape. So I guess it's just my way.
Now, you said that you're a self-taught artist, like every day you're a self-taught. But what is, can you like maybe explain, like, because that you've had to do that all on your own, like what some of the challenges have been, like, being in an art community or approaching people, or, I think we have a tendency to attract other artists that they're learning as, life is happening. And like any tips or like, something that you learned or something that surprised you?
Yeah, for me, I think getting into art was really it was really hard because I tried to like approach other artists and ask them like just simple questions like, oh, what type of paints do you use? This is when I first started out, and a lot of them were really they felt like they were giving away secrets or something, and it was really strange. So that was really challenging. Just that's why I just started to kind of explore on my own and experiment. But I'm always open to when people want to know anything. I'm always willing to tell them what I use or do and how I approach things. But um, yeah, it was really challenging to just be able to start, because where do you start when you're an artist? And I didn't know what was right or wrong. I was using things that most maybe not self-taught artists are like, why would you do that? But in order for me to learn, I was able to just explore, and that's the best way of for me to learn, was just to explore and not be afraid to just try it. There's no right or wrong way of doing things. But I'm not the type of person that goes on YouTube and watch. I can't do that because I feel like I know some people do that, but I can't. I'm the type of artist that I'm just gonna try it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure it out. Make it work. Basically, even if things aren't turning out, I can always morph it into something and make it work.
So how did you do your first art show?
My first art show was watercolor. I actually got a Minnesota State's Art Board grant. It allowed me time to create a collection. So that was kind of nice because it allowed me time to focus and really. It also allowed me time to collect stories, folk tales, and then expand from that. But otherwise, if you don't even have like grants, it's really hard to like create art. I mean, because people can create. I mean, you can be an artist, but if no one's supporting you, it can be very discouraging. I've been very fortunate that in my career, Hmong art was very new, so I've always had a very supportive community, and I'm very thankful for that. And it has allowed me to kind of explore outside of like what Hmong art is. So. But that shouldn't mean it shouldn't discourage anybody. Anybody can be an artist. It's just whether or not you want to, put the time. Because I've been doing this for, like I said, a long time.
So the grant that you got, I mean, do you still apply for grants now?
I don't apply to grants as often. But I do a lot of like when I'm invited, I do apply to them. And then if I get them, I get them. If I don't, then I always find other ways of creating art. I think that's why I have like 5 different Etsy sites. It's just to ensure that I'm always going to be creating art that there's because I don't want to get a real job yet, so I have to find ways of keeping myself busy.
And I know it's been a challenge for everyone right now, but like, would you share like what it's been like during the pandemic and everything, like being a working artist?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not alone on this, but definitely, not being able to go out to like art shows and art events have definitely affected me as an artist. But I've been fortunate enough to that's why I have different like 5 Etsy stores to ensure that if I'm not making income on art shows, I can somehow find it online. I do a lot of commission work. I get public art as well, so I'm kind of fortunate that way, but lifestyle wise, I kind of stay home and work all day, so that hasn't changed much. Social distancing, it's, it didn't really affect me as much as not being able to go out and, sell my work to the public. That's been a really hard thing. And I'm sure it's affected a lot of artists too, and I don't, it's really hard to, it can get frustrating because you're producing work, but then you're always questioning yourself whether or not your work is worth it or anything like that. But, as an artist, you can't see it like that. It's just, this is, a part of time where everyone is kind of struggling. So don't feel like if someone's not supporting your work, you're not, an accomplished artist. It has nothing to do with that. It's just everybody is struggling, and we have to remember that, if you can buy art, it's definitely a luxury, Other than that, I started making masks too, just because I wanted to start donating. Like every mask I sell, I actually donated. I just kind of wanted to give back to the people that are kind of working the front lines. So that's been kind of rewarding, making me feel a little bit, better mentally, because I'm sure mentally it's put a strain on a lot of people. I've lost a lot of people, due to depression, and so it's a tough time. Definitely. I'm not sure how other people are holding up or how they're doing. I mean, it's kind of hard because as artists, we're out in public and that's how we kind of talk to each other and keep in touch. But now that COVID's around, yes, you can, message people on email, but it's just so different than talking to them and seeing how they're doing, checking up on them, And that's the thing. It's really important if you, just check on your loved ones every now and then, because there are so many people struggling and you may or may not know it,
And start working on trying to have more like social hours online with everybody, kind of here and there, from like the group of artists that we have. I mean, and anybody can be invited to it. Social slash any type of whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
not the same, but at least it would be like, you're right, a good check,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just even sending an email or just like saying, just seeing how you're doing. It's just something simple, something quick, because, everybody is struggling. Everybody's going through things that and just your message could change, change their life. So definitely important to remember that.
How do you prefer when like artists want to come and talk to you about art?
If I'm in public, it doesn't, you can always approach me. It doesn't matter. But I check my emails, social media platforms all the time. So it could be through email, through Etsy. If you see me in person, it's not that hard to get a hold of me, I don't think. So,
Are you drawing a particular flower? Like I've seen like kind of these flowers here and there in your artwork.
no, I don't know. I'm just drawing flowers of what I think. There's no. Some of them they're poppy seeds, poppy flowers. Majority of them are just kind of random flowers that I make up. Not a particular flower. They're always in layers, and then I go after this layer. I'll go over on top and like put blooms and different ones. So I'm kind of doing like a fast underpainting. But like I said, you'll see this now and it might look something totally different. Just like most of my recent work, I mean, people are like, oh, I didn't even think that's what it's going to turn out. But that's just how I work. It's just allowing kind of the work speak for itself. So. But it's always about a figure for sure. I don't do landscapes. There are some things I will do landscape, but landscapes, I don't know. It just must speak to me, I guess. I love them. They're beautiful, but it's just really different. I have a connection with like faces and people. So it's just easier for me.
I'm totally into watching you paint. I'm gonna make everybody do this.
It's a lot of fun just because I know there's a lot of people that are always asking me to teach them how to paint. And I just think it's really hard to do that because, you know, yes, you can do a paint by number, but really painting is very emotional. It's something personal. It's within you. So for me to teach that, it's really hard. That means you just have to be kind of like allow yourself to open up and do it, and don't be afraid. So that's the one thing. It's just people are always afraid of trying new things, and you know, if you're afraid to do that, then you're never gonna, be able to. You're never gonna know what you're capable of doing. That's why I explore, experiment. I know there's a lot of people that have said, or they've made comments that, said that I'm not a professional artist because my work is kind of like all over the place, or I don't look professional. But for me, it doesn't really matter because it's just, this is how I feel. This is how I'm going to paint. It doesn't,
Whoever is calling you not professional, that's a bunch of hot garbage. Because like I see everything that you're doing, and it's like, I was in like a major city a while back, and I went to one of those commercial art, like fine arts galleries, and like the guy in the back, we went to a conversation with him where I was like, how does this work? Like, how does this, like, how do you sell this painting for $20,000? Like, I'm so curious. How are you like in this like major, like Las Vegas? Like Las Vegas, you have this gallery going all the time, and what? Like, how is this working? And like, he's telling me that like most fine artists, like the way that they're making the most money is they're making reprint.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, definitely.
And like, it makes sense. I mean, like even with what you do, like I've seen that like you have options, you have price options for people. Like maybe not everybody can afford like, $1,000 painting, but maybe they can afford a t-shirt, or maybe they can afford I have the entire coaster set of Kao Lee in our living room right now. And Juan was really upset because I think the last time that you were showing, he's like, I don't have this one. Where was this one? So but like that makes it more accessible for everybody. Like that's a good tactic as an artist.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me as an artist, I've always wanted to share with everyone. So I have different price points, just, so if you can, afford to buy the original, you can enjoy it, but then everyday people can also enjoy it as well, because that's also important, It's just not for a certain social class, and that's just how I feel about my artwork. Although I know some people feel that, I should be making reprints or I should be doing certain things. But for me, it's always been about making sure my art is accessible to everyone. Just because I enjoy art and I would love to be able to afford everyone's art, but you just can't sometimes. So, yeah. This work will go into layers and layers. I call it watch paint dry. So I'm always working on something else until it dries, and then I'll go up and detail it or do something different. So.
You have a question from Katrina. What helps you get really clear photos of your work?
I would say lighting. It depends on my headdresses. I have a light box that I put all my headdresses in. It's just, I just know that when you're trying to, especially when you're selling your products, you want it to look as close as the original. So I use a lot of good lighting and a camera, decent camera. I use the macro lens. Oh, they're just so beautiful for close-up details. So for me, it's always about having the right lighting and camera. And otherwise, and sometimes, if lighting doesn't work, then you can just use, I usually use Photoshop just to get the color correction, more closer to the products that I'm selling. Just so then if I do sell something, somebody doesn't come back and say, hey, this doesn't look like it. Right. Which is kind of funny because sometimes people are like, the actual product looks better than the picture. So thing, So I'm like, okay, so I guess I gotta update on some of my photographs, but it's really time consuming to photograph all your work, or it's time consuming. Because with all the Etsy sites, I try to, like, if I'm doing a headdresses, usually I do that around October and November. I'll try to do all my headdresses at that time and then just set up the light box so I can just keep taking pictures. Otherwise, it's so hard to take pictures, tear down, and, set up, so.
You have just the assembly line of like, I'm going to make all of this in a bag.
Yep.
Do all the Photoshop, put it on the site.
Yep, exactly. Because otherwise it's so time consuming to just take a photograph. And a photograph for me, it's like almost like, composition. I want it to look good too, because it's like displaying your work. It's a work of, kind of like a work of art in itself. So I'll take tons and tons of pictures and then figure out which angle is the best. But yeah, photographs make a huge difference, especially when you're trying to sell things on Etsy. I know a lot of them do like base it on color schemes and everything, but I just know that for me to take the time to do that, it's just gonna be another level. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just take a picture and put it on there because it just takes too long. But
we have like roughly 2 minutes left. Is there anything else you want to talk about or share? Or?
Just that, just want to thank you for your time. And, if you ever feel discouraged or, just because of people telling you that you're not going to be able to make it as an artist, don't listen to that. I just would challenge you to like explore and just try it out. Try being an artist before giving up.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for taking your Sunday and hanging out and talking with everybody and being part of my first round of victims. It's getting easier.
Yeah, it's just the technology thing is just so, for me, I don't really do a lot of interviews and everything, but yeah, it's just the weird technology. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's beautiful. All of your work is so stunning, and thank you for letting us and like showing us everything. I really appreciate it a lot.
So. You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.